Hello, kindergarten friends. Hi, Mrs. Rogers class. It's me. I'm here today for our literacy lesson. And over the last couple of days, we've done a little bit of talking about springtime and about planting. And yesterday, I was so happy to see how many of you were able to help me through the steps of what it looked like to plant some flowers. Many of you drew some pictures and did some writing along with it. So I thank you for giving me those steps. And today I thought that we would read a story together that talked about planting and what it looks like from a plant to go from a seed to a full grown plant. So today we're going to share this book. It's called National Geographic Kids Seed to Plant. I want you to take a look at the cover and tell me and think about those narrative books or those expository books. What type of book do you think this is? I'll even show you some of the pages inside before we start to read. What do you think? It's an expository book. So this is a book that's going to give us information about what a seed looks like and what it goes through as it's being planted and as it grows. Okay? So the author of this book is Kristen Baird Rattini. That's an interesting name, Kristen Baird Rattini. And you'll notice that there's no drawings, there's no illustrations in this book. It's only photographs. So you're going to see a lot of really, really interesting photos in this book. Are you ready to read? Okay, get comfy. And here we go. Seed to plant. So what I'm showing you here is the table of contents. And we've talked about this in my class. This is the section of the book that tells you all of the different topics you're going to read about in the book. So we're going to start off with what is a plant. What is a plant? A plant is a living thing. It stays in one place, but it grows and changes just like you. Plants can be big or small. Some have flowers. Others also have fruit. Trees are plants too. So here's some pictures. Let me move this way for you. Here's some pictures of some plants that we see here. This is a white water lily, and whenever I see those, I always think of froggies sitting on them. This is a fern. You may see a lot of these around. This is a tangerine tree. Wouldn't it be nice to have something like that in your backyard? And these are one of my favorites. These are orchids. They're really, really beautiful. So a plant's a living thing, just like you and I, and it needs lots of care and food and nutrients, just like we do, to live and to grow. Plants are a big part of our world. Farmers grow fruits and vegetables. These plants give us food. Some plants can be used to make clothing. I wonder if you know what this is here in this picture. Those little white fluffy balls. Your t-shirt is made from cotton plants. Those are cotton plants. So some of your clothing is made from cotton, and those are all coming from plants. Other plants are cozy homes for animals. So here, if you look down here, there's a tiny little bear nestled in a tree. You see that? Now, this is a really important part of our story today because we're going to focus a little bit on this after our story as well. Parts of a plant. You can use your body to remember the parts of the plant. So let's take a look at this little girl, okay? It says her arms are like the leaves. Her body is like the stem. And her feet are like the roots. It's what keeps her on the ground, just like the roots are what keeps the plant in the ground. Roots hold the plant in the ground. The stem helps the plant stand up tall, and leaves soak up the very important sunlight that the plant needs. So here we have a picture of leaves, the stem, the roots, which are really important. I always tell my class that they work like straws and they suck up all the water from the ground so that the plant can get what it needs. And then if we had to label this part, what would you label this part of the plant? That would be the flower, the flowering part. Now, not all plants have flowers, but most of the plants that we see do. So this would be the flower, the leaves, the stem, and the roots. So we want to think about how a plant starts. How does a plant begin? Sorry about that little bit of glare, boys and girls. I'm doing my best so that you don't see that bright, shiny spot. So number one, let's dig in. And this is what a lot of you told me yesterday. Most plants start as a seed, and you have to dig it into the ground. The seed splits open, and a shoot pushes out. This is called germination. Can you say that word with me? Germination. That's a really big word, and that's when the seed starts to open and sprout out, and a little shoot comes out. And number three is when a new plant is beginning. Okay? A new plant is beginning. So let's go back to that big word, that vocabulary word there. Germination. That's a sprouting of a seed or sprouting of a shoot from a new plant. Okay? Or sprouting of a small little shoot. So if we look here, do you see that small little shoot coming out from the seed? That's what germination is. We know when we start to see that the plant is germinated. A seedling starts to grow. A root reaches down into the soil, and stems push up into the air. So here we have, just like that flower picture we saw, we have roots, a stem, and leaves. On this picture, we don't have a flower, but we do have those other three parts. Okay? So a seedling, you might be wondering what that is. A seedling is a young plant. So these are young plants. They're just starting to grow. Just like you. You're kind of like a little seedling too. So now this is when the plant's growing. A plant grows. And here's some girls in the garden. And down here it says, watering a garden helps it grow. Just like you, a plant grows bigger and bigger. The roots spread out and down into the soil. The stem gets thicker and stronger. More leaves and branches grow. So there's a word there that we use. We talk about the dirt that you plant a seed in. That word soil is the top layer of the ground which a plant grows from. So what you're digging into and what it's pushing out from is called the soil. Okay? These are just some important words for you to remember about planting. So this is really important because now we need to know about what plants need. And this is going to be something I talk to you about a little bit tomorrow with our activity. But we'll focus on it today for now. Plants need things in order to grow, just like you and I need things too. Plants need soil, water, food, sunlight, air, and space. Water and some food come from the soil. The roots soak them up. Remember, Mrs. Rogers said they're like little straws. They suck up all that water and food. Sunlight and air enters through the leaves of the plant. Plants use them to make more food. Isn't that amazing? Plants can make their own food using sunlight and the air in their leaves. They're pretty amazing living things. Plants also need space to grow. As you grow, your body gets bigger and taller. Well, as plants grow, their bodies get wider and taller too, so they need lots of space to grow, just like this tree here. So the leaves are going to take the sunlight and the air in, and they're going to make their own food. And the roots are going to suck up all the food and water and nutrients, those are kind of like vitamins, from the soil. So here's just some fun facts about plants. And these might be some things that you are going to be amazed at. I know when I read this story, I was amazed at this very first thing I'm going to read. Fun plant facts. This palm tree seed, I'm going to put it up to the camera a little bit so you can see. That's a palm tree seed. It can weigh as much as a fourth grader. So all of you who have older brothers and sisters, think about how big and heavy they are. This seed, which we usually think seeds are really tiny, this seed can weigh as much as they do. That's pretty heavy, I would say. I think that'd be a hard seed to plant. Here's number 2. It says, scrub-a-dub-dub. Plants are used in many soaps and shampoos that you use in the tub. Plants are really important, not just for what we eat, but for all the things that we put on our body, like our lotions and soaps. Here's number 3. It says the paper for this book was made from trees, and trees are a plant. So paper, all the paper that you use, your writing paper, your worksheets, your books that you enjoy, those are all made from trees, which are plants. This is my favorite. This is my absolute favorite plant. One sunflower can make as many as 1,000 seeds. 1,000 seeds. That's a lot for one little flower to be carrying inside of it. Isn't that cool? How about number 5? Let's read number 5. Bamboo grows the fastest of any plant. It can grow as tall as a 3-year-old child in one day. In one day. So some of you that have younger siblings, younger children in your family, think about how tall they are. Bamboo can grow just as fast as that in one day. It took your sibling 3 or 4 or 2 years to grow as tall as they are. It only takes them one day. That's pretty amazing. The tallest living tree, this is number 6, the tallest living tree is taller than the Statue of Liberty in New York City. That is huge. It's huge. So cool. So here we're going to talk a little bit about flowers blooming. Okay, so it says many plants grow flowers. Now again, not all plants grow flowers, but many do. When they grow their flowers, they start as a bump called a bud. This is a bud. We talked a little bit about buds when we learned about the apple life cycle. So you can think back to that a little bit too. Okay. The bud slowly opens and petals gently unfold. And then by the time they're done unfolding, surprise, you have a beautiful flower. Again, pretty neat. Flowers and plants are pretty cool things. So I shared a story with my class yesterday when I did a Zoom meeting with them, and we talked about pollen and how important bees are. Flowers make a sticky powder called pollen. Okay? You'll see it on this bee in just a minute. Pollen sticks to birds and bees when they fly from flower to flower. So the bee goes inside, looks like it's sniffing around looking for nectar, and the pollen from the inside of the flower sticks to the bee. So if you look at this bee here, he's got all sorts of yellow powder on him. That's pollen. That pollen rubs off onto other flowers. And this is called, are you ready? This is another big vocabulary word. Pollination. Can you say that with me? Pollination. And that helps flowers make seeds. So as that bee travels from flower to flower, he's dropping pollen in each and every one of those. And it helps the flower to make seeds. Pretty neat, huh? Bees are really important. I know sometimes we get a little afraid of them, but we always say if they leave us alone, or if we leave them alone, they're going to leave us alone. And they're really important in the flower process. You see some important seeds here? I know I do. Plants keep seeds in different places. Many plants grow a case around the seeds. The case is called a pod. Peas and maple trees seeds grow in pods. I know many of you might have eaten peas like this in pods. And I know many of you know that when these fall down from the maple trees, they're kind of fun to stick on your nose. Orange seeds are different. Their seeds are on the inside of their flesh. So they're not on the outside, they're on the inside. But strawberries are on the outside. So when you look at a strawberry, all those little dots that you see there, those are each little tiny seeds. I bet you didn't know that. It's pretty cool, isn't it? This is going to be our last page for today. So it says, now the seeds take a trip. Some float on the wind, like these. You might see these in your yard or at the park. These are called dandelion clocks. And I know when I was little, I used to take them and blow all of the seeds so they'd float through the air. Others are carried away by animals. So here's a bird collecting a seed and a squirrel collecting a seed, and they get carried away and dropped into different places by animals. The seeds fall to the ground, and soon they sprout or germinate. Remember, we learned that word. And a new plant begins. So that's what we have a few more pages in our book, but we're going to stop there for today because we just wanted to talk a little bit about how seeds work and how they became plants. And what Mrs. Rogers is going to do is I'm going to put a link to this book up with our activity, and it's on Epic, our book library for Epic. And if you'd like to listen to the story again, you're more than welcome to play our video again and let me read it to you. Or you can go on to Epic and you can have the narrator read it to you. And that allows you to kind of go a little bit faster or a little bit slower if you'd like. Okay, so there will be a link to our book with our activity today. And you can just use our class code to get in if you'd like to hear it again in that way. So the activity that I have for you that's going to go along with this is labeling the parts of a flower. So let's see. Now I'm going to include this worksheet with our activity, but do you have to print it out? No, don't worry. If you can't print it out, that's okay. Mrs. Rogers just gives you these sheets as kind of a guide for you to use so that you can create your own if you can't print it out. So today we're going to be labeling the parts of a flower. And remember, back in the book, Mrs. Rogers stopped at that page and we talked about the parts of a flower being almost like the parts of your body, your leaves, your stem, and your feet being the roots. So we have 4 parts that we're going to label here today. And again, if you can't print out the paper, all you have to do is draw a flower on any scrap paper that you have. And we have 4 things that we're going to label. I'm going to read them to you down here. There's a stem, a flower, a leaf, and roots. Okay? And if you have the ability to print out the worksheet and you want to cut the words off and glue them in the box, you can do that. Or if you'd really like to challenge yourself, you can write the words in the box without cutting them out. And if you're a friend who's drawing the flower and doing your labeling, I can't wait to see your words, how you've written your words when you label the parts, okay? So think about that story. Think about when we looked at the parts of a plant and Mrs. Rogers went back and I said, what do you think this part would be called? I want you to think about those 4 parts that we talked about. And you're going to do some labeling today. And I cannot wait to see your work that you do because you've been doing fantastic work for all of your teachers. So I'm very proud of you all, boys and girls. Again, I can't wait to see your work. I know it's a little bit rainy this morning and it's going to be a little bit cloudy, but do your best to try to have some fun inside or outdoors today. Okay? Love you and miss you all. Have a great day.